you for visiting the Africa Rising Cycling Podcast, where we share the big and most interesting cycling stories from across the continent of Africa and from around the world where African cyclists are racing and riding.
For this edition of the Team Africa Rising Cycling Podcast, we are joined by Beth Durier, co-owner of the SRAM Zondacrypto and SRAM Zondacrypto Generation teams, Director of Marketing Communications and part-time sports director. We are talking to Beth as her team have been big supporters of African women for several years, and 2026 might prove to be the most exciting yet. Welcome to the podcast, Beth.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you to all the listeners. I'm very happy to be here.
Wonderful. So, before we get into the specifics of your work with African female cyclists, can you please introduce yourself and share your journey in the world of cycling up to this point?
Yeah, I'm originally from Australia, now living in Italy. I've been involved in cycling and specifically women's cycling for around 17 years now, which is quite a long time from the first time I left Australia for it. I didn't come actually from a background of cycling when I was younger. I was into many other sports, and cycling was definitely not one of them. So it's really, I think, curious to see that now my world evolves around the cycling world. So I originally started in cycling working as a sports physiotherapist with the Australian Institute of Sport around the time just before Beijing Olympics. And yeah, that was my foray into the cycling world, working as a physio. And then from the Australian national team, I went to professional team, HTC High Road at the time, which has morphed into several other various versions of that team until in 2016, Ronnie Lark and myself, and with Canyon also became co-owners of SRAM zondacrypto and SRAM zondacrypto Generation, as we know now. And now I'm not doing any physiotherapy really at all. My role in the team is primarily as marketing communications director, but I also have done some sport directing in the past, as well as being involved in various areas within the women's team, let's say. But yeah, this is my main job now.
Fantastic. And just on the last point, do you find sport directing just gives you more of an insight into the sport, because it's sort of the closest you can get to the sport without being on the bike?
Yeah, it's really it's definitely a different aspect. I mean, I think all of the roles within a cycling team can bring some different view onto it as well. I mean, we have the soigneurs and physiotherapists that are really close to the riders when they're giving treatment and massage and so forth. And mechanics also play such a huge role as sport directors when they're in the race car. I think everything has its own relationship and connection to the riders and to the racing itself. Of course, the sport director role comes with a significant amount of responsibility, especially in the race scenarios when the decisions really need to be made in a race scenario. So I think it definitely has an impact, there and then within a race.
Absolutely, and it could be quite a stressful world, as I've experienced in my sport directing times.
Yeah, exactly. It's always interesting to be in the race car. Yeah, there's some races where it can be really pretty smooth running and everything goes let's say according to plan, or there's no hiccups. But there's many times where there's just some unpredictable part of the racing, and mechanicals or crashes or whatever the scenario. Let alone the racing itself, and then of course there's the convoy, and there's many things to navigate and think about. But yeah, it's a bit of it's exciting, and I like doing it from time to time when I am in the car.
So, I mean, SRAM has supported African women for several years now, as we said, since the team established in 2022, featuring two African female talents, Namibia's Olivia Shilalifa and Rwanda's Valentine Senga. Since then, including your 2026 riders, you've supported 10 women from 8 different African countries. This is more than any other women's pro team. Why has your team been so keen to focus on African women?
I mean, 2022 was the first year, but we'd already had a couple of years of conversations around the topic, of what our team as one of the leading women's world tour teams could do help diversify the sport, and also to see more of the riders from countries that represent that are underrepresented in the women's pro peloton. We know that a large portion is made up from European-based riders. And so, we toyed around with many different ideas with bringing one rider in or two riders into the World Tour team. But I think also at the same time, when you see this, there's such a significant year on year, the Women's World Tour steps up a level even higher and higher. And it's an incredible, and it's an enormous gap from, let's say, a junior category to go into the elite World Tour level. And we decided, actually, why don't we actually start in a development team? And at the first time in 2022, we were the first Women's World Tour team to have its own standalone development team. And in doing that, we also wanted to give the opportunity to riders that are, from countries all around the world that are underrepresented in the women's pro peloton. And of course, that was Africa, Asia. We had a rider from Malaysia. And we also, South America, as well as like the, not limited to that, because when we first started, we were a German team, so we had to have German registered riders as well. But to give the opportunities to riders from there, and of course, Africa is such a huge continent with such an immense pool of talent. So it also, makes sense that the majority of our riders are coming from Africa. I still, especially this year, for example, you can see, but it would be great to make sure we have also try to target riders from Africa, but also from South America and Asia as well.
The group of African women you've worked with to date has had some interesting young talent, but arguably the two riders signed for 2026 are probably the most exciting prospects out of Africa in many years. Ethiopia's 18-year-old rising star and winner of pretty much everything in Africa. It's Tsige Kahsay Kiros from Ethiopia, and the current Eritrean national women's champion, Mona Lisa Araya. When did you first come across these two young women, and what is it you saw in them?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, just super excited for 2026 with the Generation team. Having Tsige and Mona Lisa, they're exceptional talents, and we're just, we can't wait to see what the season unfolds for both of those riders, for the team to have them on board as well. I think, I mean, ever since the team began, the first year we put out like applications. Basically, we tried to spread the form and the news as far and wide as possible to federations, to media, to friends of friends, and contacts of contacts all around the world, to try to get as big a pool as possible to select the riders. And since the team then, was established in the first year, we see many times there's a lot of applications. People know more about the team, federations know more that the team exists, and it's an opportunity for them to try to get riders into the team. And of course, also with those years of experience, we spend some time to look ourselves and to try to spread the network of possibilities of where we're looking. The races that are happening on the African continent, for example, races outside of Europe that we see. We're looking for the junior level races, or even under 19, or even elite level races from as far and wide as possible. And of course, with Tsige and Mona Lisa, Tsige in particular had, already a significant history of talent, let's say, and winning races within Africa. And then when she came with the WCC and Race Tour of L'Avenir, of course, that, let's say, confirmed her ability to first time racing in the European peloton. Then and at that age also, it was already like, okay, that's the the only let's say extra piece of confirmation that we would need to be interested, to have the discussions and then eventually sign her. So, and at the same way also with Mona Lisa, of course, as national champion for Eritrea, which has such actually a big talent pool there. So that already is a significant confirmation that she obviously has some talent, and also some motivation and drive to, become national champion. I think that's a big deal in Eritrea, and we're delighted to have both of the riders on board.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to someone the other day about national champion of Eritrea. It's not just national champion of Eritrea. Like when you see the races there, Razing Ran Asmara. So to be national champion, I mean, they actually have like an unofficial tally of pro riders against local riders in when they do their national champs. And so there's a huge competition for that jersey. It's a huge thing to get that. So I think she's going to be really exciting to see in Europe. We just saw on your socials actually that, I mean, obviously we know Mona Lisa has had a slight challenge with visas, but we saw on your socials that she's had a bike fitting last week. And they'll both Tsige and Mona Lisa will be racing in Belgium this weekend. So very exciting times. And obviously when this podcast comes out, we'll know the results. But
Yeah.
what are you hoping to see in their first kermesses and races in Belgium?
Yeah, I mean, as we know, the racing in Belgium is not easy. Even kermesse races, it's going to be a strong field that's there. I think for in 2026, the team decided with Gosha Jasinska as the team director and team manager to bring the entire team to Belgium for around about a 3-week block in order for them to do some kermesse races and a couple of the UCI races there as well. So it's just a learning playground really for the riders from all of the generation team riders there, and for Tsige and Mona Lisa. I mean, Tsige had her first race already in Trophy Auto last week or 2 weekends ago now. And then for her, to have her second race as Kermesse, and Mona Lisa as well. I think it's really just a starting point. There's no expectations from our side as well. I mean, Mona Lisa's just acclimatizing really and getting over jet lag, and and being in Europe and meeting the team and everything's new, and getting a bike set up and fitted and everything like that. So we need to be realistic, and it's just a good starting point. It's a good experience for the riders, for all of the riders in particular, Tsige and Mona Lisa, to do a couple of the races in Belgium, but also then to spend time with the team racing and training there in Belgium on the Belgian roads as well, because cobblestones and cobblestone climbs, I mean, you also don't have those in many of the countries outside of Belgium. So it's a great experience for the entire team, and also to be there. They've already had 2 winter training camps, and now this will be sort of the first mini camp in Belgium that Mona Lisa has been a part of. So it's a really nice opportunity for her to meet all of her teammates, all of the staff that will be working full time with the team, and just to get to know each other as well, on and off the bike.
Absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned, Tsige has raced now for the team. She came an incredible 56th in the 14th edition of the Trofeo Oro in Europe a couple of weeks ago. It's a 107 kilometer UCI 1.1 race with quite a lot of the top stars in the peloton there. For context, she finished just 50 seconds outside the top 20. He was in the top 20 U23 and the fastest 18-year-old in the race. Thanks to Pro Cycling Stats for all the stats as usual. Is the sky the limit for this young woman, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's we need to keep in mind, I suppose, that we shouldn't put too high expectations on Tsige for the first full-time season racing in Europe. We're very well aware of her talent, but it will take some time for her to find her feet into the European racing full time, and also being so far away from home, and there's many factors to consider. But for her first race, she was actually involved in a crash and had to have a bike change early on in the race. And then, even just the experience of coming back through that, back through the convoy, back into the peloton, that's an experience you can't really explain unless you actually experience and do it yourself. So, even just that. And then she did a great race in Trofeo d'Oro for her first race. Sorry. We were just, we know that we have Tsige for 3 years. She has a 3-year contract with the team. And so it's important for us to take our time, and also, to make this first year about learning and developing, and build on that for year 2 as well, and making mistakes, and that's just part of learning to be a professional cyclist. And we're more than happy to support all of the riders and to Tsige through that, through these opening. I mean, it's really the opening of the restart of her career, and we hope she's very motivated to make it a long career.
There's such raw talent and one old head on young shoulders as well when you talk to her. I remember at the World Championships, I was on the finish line with Nicolas Dubois from World Cycling Centre. I think from the first lap, we were both like, calm down. And she just kept attacking. but she's just got that raw talent. And one of the data points we worked out the other day is she's probably one of the youngest signed African riders in history. So she's actually a year ahead of Biniam in terms of getting a contract with a proper team.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a fascinating next 5-10 years. So we are very excited about that. One of the key issues we still see, and increasingly so for European teams, getting visas for young African riders. From your side, having just gone through this, is this still a tough issue for these riders to get on professional teams?
Yeah, I mean that's it's a well-known fact that there's many barriers for riders from Africa to enter into Europe for for racing or for living here as a cyclist, and to be able to access the European races at their doorstep, so to speak. And even knowing that there are those challenges and those barriers, until you really are inside and trying to deal with the administrative side of those visa applications, it's almost indescribable, I would say, the level of barriers and the height of those barriers to try to enter into European pro cycling. So even with the team now having a few years of experience, we're still not, we're still far from having everything perfect in terms of dealing with embassies and federations and the government and the governing bodies and what the process is, because it also changes from country to country as well. Tsige is our second Ethiopian rider on the team after SRAM zondacrypto. But even so, second time around, it makes it slightly easier, but not significantly easier, that it's just a smooth sailing and breeze to go through. So it's certainly a challenge, but it's something we know, we're prepared and we're ready for that, and it doesn't stop us signing riders from those countries, because we know that there is the talent, and we know that it's going to be extra work for us and for the rider to go through that visa process. In the case of Mona Lisa, just sitting there basically trying to wait until the visa was approved in order for her to come, it's mentally pretty tiring. Also, for the athlete to be, to have signed a contract with the team, but still actually not have met the team because of not having the visa approved. So it's quite a challenging topic, I would say. And like I said, we have some years of experience, and we're learning year on year what the best way forward is, but it's still not smooth sailing. But we are, we're committed. And also, with Mona Lisa and Tsige, we're now, we now have their visas sorted.
And it is appreciated, because we know it is a lot of extra work.
Yeah.
But obviously we work with young African riders a lot, especially women, and we know they need extra care and attention when joining these professional teams, because even for a Tsige and a Mona Lisa, at the level they're operating at domestically, almost every aspect of their lives will change. Now they're on World Tour Devo team. We do a lot to prepare riders through our work for this, and the UCI World Cycling Centre team gives them a taste of that for sure. How is the culture shock from your experience, and what aspects are unique for these riders from Africa?
Yeah, I mean it's an entire culture shock, I would say. There's no way to make it less of a shock than what it is. I mean, I think we try to do our best to make the riders feel that when they come to the team, and when they're living in Europe with the team and they're on the road, that this is their sort of second little family. From the staff and their teammates as well. We know it will be challenging for them. Sometimes there's times when it's going to be harder and then other times as well. And we try to support the riders and make them feel that this is their by no means taking place of their family or their own culture, but this is a place where they feel safe and they feel supported. And they feel listened to, because I mean, any young woman who's away from home cannot feel comfortable and feel a bit homesick and everything. And I mean, that's just normal part of life. And being so far away and having such a significant difference in culture, we're well aware of that, and we try to be pay extra attention, that we can pick up on any little signs, or just do that extra little check in to the riders, that are they okay, and how are they going, and is there something maybe you don't see on the first question of how are you, but if you ask a second time, sometimes you can get a little bit more information, or you see signs where someone's really feeling the distance, let's say. of course, now that Mona Lisa and Tsige has joined the team in Tsige, that's that's an extra African rider on the team for Tsige, so it's for sure a significant boost for her as well. I know that they're both working on learning English when they're with the team. Also the teammates. It's not just the teammates trying to teach them English; it's them also trying to teach the teammates their own culture.
It's so great. You've got two women on the team from the same region, so they have the language in common. Already, I saw one photo, I think, of Mona Lisa's bike fit, and Seeger's there sort of chatting away and smiling away, and I was like, you could see the body language, and it reminded me actually when I saw that of we just asked Lucy Meyer from Mauritius, who's joined the World Cycling Centre Conti team, to be big sister to Benin's Georgette Vignon-Fondo because she's also 18. And they're the only French speakers on the program, so they're sharing a room together and they're going to work together, which I think is super helpful. Are there any techniques or programs you have in place to help Tsige and Mona Lisa learn the culture of the team and the countries where you're training and racing? And then on the other side of that, and you mentioned this a little bit, but are there opportunities for them to showcase their culture to the team as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of the first winter training camps, it's there's time, of course, there's training kilometers on the bike, but there's so much time spent off the bike getting to know each other, and trying to teach the other riders about the differences in culture and the differences for them, how they grew up, or what for them is home, what is home, where is home, what does it look like, what are their families, what are their backgrounds, and trying to share that information as much as possible, because I think it's such a huge advantage also to Tsige and Mona Lisa's teammates to have riders from Africa, because it's so different to how they entered into cycling as well, and or even the distance that they have from home, for example. So I think it goes both ways, but of course, trying to that's something that our World Tour team has always had, and we try to implement into the generation team, that we actually celebrate the differences and highlight the differences and show what those differences are, because there's so many things that are unique and special, and many people are proud of their culture and their background and where they come from. So it's nice to actually hear those differences and to see it's mind-blowing, some of the differences that there are. But it's really nice to highlight those and make that part of the sort of the normal conversation, I would say, as well. So there's a lot of time off the bike talking about those differences, and trying to learn more about it, from both sides as well. And of course, I think there's generally within the team, I mean, there's 10 riders now that Mona Lisa has joined the team. You find those riders, a couple of them have been there for a couple of years. Many of them are also new for this year. But there tends to be always sort of a general, I don't know, like a maternal type person within the team. Let's say, one of the teammates who tends to take on sort of big sister role, let's say, more so than some of the others. And it's always really interesting from the outside just to see who that is, because it changes from year to year depending on the group and the mix. And so it's really interesting to see how the team gel together in 2026 as well. Of course, we also know that there's a couple of other Ethiopians in Girona, or at some of the races that we see other riders from Africa, and we always try to encourage that there's some contact with those riders as well, because they're on the they maybe have some experiences to share as well.
To make sure Tsige and Mona Lisa make the injera and the food for the team, because it's every time we hang out with Ethiopians, Eritreans, the injera and the food they make to go with it is spectacular. So I think a night of that would be good.
It's just a way to share part of their home and their culture and their background.
So you mentioned this actually as well about the networking. I mean, there's actually 20 African women racing on pro teams in 2026. It's the highest number ever. Obviously, Kim LaCourt is sort of out there leading the way. Will there be opportunities for other African women to join your Devo team in the years to come?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we would love to see more and more riders that are from countries that are based outside of Europe. As I mentioned at the start, having also riders from Asia or South America as well. But Africa, yeah, we would love to have some additional riders on the team in the future. I think more, as you said, there are more and more African riders in the pro peloton on pro World Tour teams and Conti teams. And I think that I truly believe that the impact, for example, of Kenya's SRAM zondacrypto generation will be highlighted even more in the years to come. We had the first riders that came in 2022 and then 2023, even the likes of Diane Ingabire from Rwanda, for example. I think the generation of riders that or young women, young girls who are maybe even early teenagers now, who now get to see those riders from the national champion, like young riders from Eritrea, or young women from Eritrea who see Mona Lisa as the national champion racing in Europe, doing European races, her journey, her success, telling her story, who then are inspired to take up cycling as their sport, and also to dream that they want to reach the pro level as well. So I think it's the generation coming that we will see it just get stronger and go stronger and stronger, and goes from strength to strength, and even more African riders in the pro peloton. That I really do believe that we're seeing it now, like Tsige and Mona Lisa, but I think even in the years to come, we will see even more of that, which is pretty exciting as well.
You think about 7 million people on the streets of Asmara for Biniam. They've never seen a female rider at this level. In the history of Eritrean cycling, they've never had a female rider on a world tour setup. There's a few riders that have been on continental level, but not on a world tour Devo setup. So the moment she starts racing, I think firstly, your social media will go nuts, because the Eritrean fans are phenomenal on social media, and they're so passionate. And I think seeing these results this weekend, you'll see a huge spike in your socials. They are some of the greatest fans in cycling in Africa.
Yeah, which is fantastic. I mean, Mona Lisa is the first rider from Eritrea that's been on the team. We've had quite a few from various different countries from the African continent. So yeah, it's also for me personally, and for the team, it's exciting to have a rider from Eritrea, and to learn more also about the country. And we already saw as soon as Mona Lisa came to Europe actually and joined the team, we already noticed that there was quite a lot of support. So very curious to see where that goes for the rest of the year.
Wonderful. The flags will start arriving in the paddock. You'll see.
Yeah, let's hope so. That's what we want to see. I mean, how much support can you possibly, like, what other support can you possibly ask for as a pro rider to step out before a race or after a race and feel like you have that home support and that country support? I think it's pretty special, and I can't wait to see the reaction as well.
Well, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thanks so much for your time, Beth. We'll also be following the team avidly this year, and encourage all our listeners to follow the Canyon SRAM zondacrypto social media channels to see all the updates. We wish you all the best for the 2026 season.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening in. Keep supporting.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Africa Rising Cycling Podcast. If you like what you have heard, please do share our podcast with your friends and on social media. Leave us a review, or even make a donation to Africa Rising Cycling. All of this will help us to continue to bring you fascinating stories about African cycling.